Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and 'tis the season to be jolly. Normally, around this time of year, we all have a bunch of free time, so we like to get our gaming marathons on. We try to play as many games as possible, and to me, you can do one of two things. You can either play an RPG that's going to take up a lot of your time, or you can play a lot of really short but fun, fast-paced action games. I myself am a lover of all things run and gun shooter, as well as beat 'em ups and hack and slashers. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite run and gun shooters across multiple systems. And these might be some games that you might want to check out or even play during the holiday season. So let's start it. First is going to be Contra Advanced, the Alien Wars. So this is basically Contra 3, but on the Game Boy Advance. I don't own a copy of Contra 3 Alien Wars on the Super Nintendo, surprisingly enough. I've tried to get that game a few times. I've just never actually nailed a copy down. But I did get a copy for the Game Boy Advance. It plays a lot like the Super Nintendo version. It's a great version to play. And if, you're pretty much wrapping up the evening and everyone else has gone to bed and you just kind of want to do some solo gaming, this is a great way to go on the Game Boy Advance. And then also on the Game Boy Advance, Gunstar Superheroes. So we all know about Gunstar Heroes on the Sega Genesis, but Gunstar Superheroes is a great a second installment into the Gunstar Heroes franchise. And this is one that's definitely worth playing and checking out. Great graphics, great visuals, great music, and all that run and gun action that you can handle. So two really great handhelds that you can kind of get some gaming on by yourself, whether it be early morning or late evening when everyone else is done. These are two great ways to go. Keeping with the spirit of handhelds, let's talk about Metal Slug. Now, there are a lot of different Metal Slug games that we could talk about. You've got Metal Slug Advance on the Game Boy, all the Metal Slug games across multiple systems. But I really like Metal Slug Second Mission because, again, this is a great handheld experience. I'm not sure if this game comes in the Neo Geo Pocket collection that came out for the Switch. But I really like this Metal Slug because it is more close. It plays more closely to the original Metal Slug in that you get the voiceover action, a little bit better animation as opposed to the first Metal Slug that came out on the Neo Geo Pocket. So I'm a big fan of this version of Metal Slug. If you're looking for more handheld action, go ahead and check this one out. I think you will not be disappointed in trying that one. Speaking of Metal Slug and Gunstar Heroes, let's talk about a game that I think is the offspring of both, and that is Commando Steel Disaster. If you're looking for another handheld, maybe something a little bit more widescreen and colorful, I highly recommend you check out Commando Steel Disaster. This game is a blast. Like I said, it's if Metal Slug and Gunstar Heroes had a child, this is what the game would be. And although the graphics lean more towards Metal Slug, I would say, than Gunstar Heroes, but no matter what, this is a very fun game. There's things you can do in here that you can't do in Metal Slug, which I do like. One of my favorites is the actual ability to roll, like a roll dodge. That's not something that you get in a lot of run and gun shooters, the ability to roll dodge and avoid attacks. I think that's an amazing mechanic to add to a game. The music is great. Weapons are great. Levels look great. This is a great one to check out for the DS. And then speaking of Metal Slug, we have to have another Metal Slug entry in here. Metal Slug 7. Not going to spend too much time on this one. We all know about the joys of playing Metal Slug. This is just another amazing installment into the Metal Slug franchise. Something a little bit different for you if you're wanting to get your handheld gaming on. I definitely recommend you checking out Metal Slug 7. Let's go old school now. If you're really more of into like the old school vibe and you want to get your NES on, a really cool run and gun shooter is Journey to Celus. This one is simple yet fun. You get a number of different weapons to choose from as you kind of platform your way through different levels, trying to avoid enemy attacks, blasting your way through. Journey to Celus is a great game on the NES, and if you're trying to go more old school, I definitely recommend you checking that one out. And if you're really wanting to stay old school, not trying to do anything too crazy, G.I. Joe, a real American hero. This is really fun. This is a really good side-scrolling run and gun shooter because you get to play as a number of different characters in the G.I. Joe squad. You got different weapons to choose from, great level designs, and I think the cutscenes in this game are pretty cool, especially for being an NES game. Pretty cool cutscenes on this one. So this is definitely one I recommend if you're wanting to go old school. Coming out of the 8-bit generation back into the 16-bit generation, this is one that I gotta recommend. Forgotten Worlds. I feel like so many people forget about this game. Forgotten Worlds is a very, very fun side-scrolling shoot 'em up game, and it plays a lot like Troubleshooter. If you've ever played Troubleshooter or Battlemania Troubleshooter on the Sega Genesis, some of you might know that game. That is a classic shooter. I mean, really, really good one. The English version is super expensive. It's like 500 bucks, or was 500 bucks. I don't know how much it is now. And I think even the Japanese version, the Mega Drive version, is also expensive. This is a heavily discounted version of that game. This game is like a $25 to $30 game, if I'm not mistaken. It plays a lot like Troubleshooter. The difference is that there are some like RPG elements to this game where you can power your players up. You also collect these little blue orbs throughout each level. That's basically like currency for you to use when you stop in these stores. Like throughout each level, these little stores pop up and you can go in there and upgrade your weapons, upgrade your armor, buy things like shields. It's a very, very cool game in that way. Kind of reminds me of Lords of Thunder in that way. This game definitely, like the mechanics wise, it definitely reminds me of Lords of Thunder. This is a very cool game on the Sega Genesis though. If you've never had a chance to play Lords of Thunder, I highly recommend you check this one out. And then sticking with the 16-bit era or the 32-bit era, whichever one it is, Metal Warriors. I highly recommend this one. So this is the filet mignon this is the filet mignon version of like Cybernator. A lot of people have heard of Cybernator for the Super Nintendo, which is like a side-scrolling mech style run and gun shooter. Cybernator is a cool game. I think that one's also made by Konami as well. But Metal Warriors just takes that game to a whole new level. I want to say the level of detail in this game is what's the most astounding. And out of all the games that out of all the action platforming run and gun type games that I've played on the Super Nintendo, the only other game that's as detailed with the controls to me is Hagane. In that like every button has a different function on the Super Nintendo controller, from the trigger buttons to all four of the, the the ABXY. You're able to use a myriad of weapons, a lot of options. You can hop out of the mech. You can go into different mechs. You can do damage to the environment around you. Just so much detail. And then the cutscenes. I mean, when you start the game up, the game itself feels like it feels more advanced than a Super Nintendo game. To be honest, I feel like this game, when I play it, belongs on like the Neo Geo or something. It's at that level. Very good game. Highly recommend. This one is a pricey one, so you may want to emulate it in some way, or if you can download it, or even get a repro card. I'm not opposed to repro cards. My copy of Hagane is a repro, but just play this game because it's a very good one. I recommend that for all of you fans of run and gun shooters out there. All right, moving it right along. If you like import games, then you'll like this one. This is Wolf Fang. This is Wolf Fang for the Sega Saturn, and Wolf Fang plays a lot like Metal Warriors. This is also a side-scrolling mech game. The only difference with Wolf Fang is that you get way more options in terms of the weapons that you can use. I love the art style in this game, the pixelated graphics. I wish I understood what they were saying in the cutscenes, because those look awesome as well. But this, in terms of just action and gameplay, this is definitely one that you'll want to check out. Wolf Fang is one import on the Sega Saturn that I definitely wanted to experience. And this is a very fun side-scrolling mech shooter. Definitely recommend you checking that one out. Next up, another import side-scrolling shooter that I gotta recommend is Rapid Reload. I've talked about this one a lot. This is another child of Gunstar Heroes and Metal Slug. This is another step nephew of those two games. And I would say a lot like Commando Steel Disaster. Commando Steel Disaster and Rapid Reload both take elements from Metal Slug and Gunstar Heroes. What I would say is that Commando Steel Disaster leans more towards the Metal Slug side in terms of presentation and gameplay. Rapid Reload leans more towards the Gunstar Hero side in terms of presentation and gameplay. It definitely feels like a game that would have been produced by Treasure. It just has that feel with the music and the gameplay. Both amazing run and gun shooter games. Rapid Reload is a ton of fun. If you happen to have a PAL PlayStation 1, because you will only be able to play this game on a PAL PlayStation 1 or a modded PlayStation 1, This game did not come out in North America, so unfortunately, you'll have to either emulate it in some way or something like that. If you do try and get an original copy of the game, it is very expensive as well. So this is one that I would say probably you may want to try and emulate or see if you can download it in some way. But Rapid Reload is a great game. Another way you can play it is also getting the Japanese version that's called Gunner's Heaven. Another great version of the game. It'll allow you to actually play through the levels and everything like that. But this is one of those games with a lot of cutscenes, a lot of talking. So I really went for the PAL version because I really wanted to understand the story behind the game. So, but definitely one that I highly, highly, highly recommend. All right, last but not least, this game is not so much a side scroller, but it's still kind of like a run and gun style game, and I have to recommend it. And that is Silent Bomber on the PlayStation 1. Silent Bomber it's definitely in my top 5 favorite PlayStation 1 games because of the presentation, the music, the atmosphere, the gameplay. It's just a very fun game. This game is like a combination of Bomberman and Metal Gear Solid. That's genuinely what it is. It presents a lot like Metal Gear Solid in terms of just like the seriousness, the darkness of the game. Also, the levels feel very wide and open. It's a very much a linear game, but the levels feel wide and open. You've got room to run, which you would really need to, right? Because the premise of the game is that your main moves for attacking enemies is by setting bombs and then laying bombs down, and then you can actually set them to explode. Some bombs you can put on a timer, some bombs you can actually trigger them yourself once the enemy gets near. And you get different upgrades throughout the game that increase the power of your bombs as well as increase the number of bombs that you're able to set. You can increase the strength to things like napalm and stuff like that. So it's just very interesting. The boss battles are super engaging. And like I said, just the openness of the levels is what I really like for this type of game. This is a very unique game. I don't know if I've ever played another game like this of this generation, but a very, very cool one. If my description isn't intriguing enough, just go ahead and look up some gameplay footage of Silent Bomber. I think you'll be really impressed with what you see. But this is a very, very cool game, one that I highly recommend you take a look at during the holidays. And that does it for me in terms of my top 15 or so. I don't even know how many I showed here, maybe 12 to 15 games. But these are some of my favorite run and gun shooters in my collection. Some of them are more common than others. Some of them you may have heard of. Some of them you may have not heard of. But definitely check these out. Gameplay footage of all these games is available on YouTube if you're interested or intrigued just to see what they look like. And let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.